So, I have recently finished watching All Her Fault, the mini series from 2025. And I'm here to share some thoughts. Why? Because why not? Okay. Now, I did not read the novel that this miniseries is based on, and I think that's very interesting. Like, it's really my type of a show. I love this trend, especially I feel in the past years, of a mini series based on a novel. I feel like it's really great. Of course, a series is much better suited for adapting a novel than a movie, right? A film. So that works very well. And also I feel like they're usually written better. That's just how it is, like, I'm sorry. Of course, this video is going to include some spoilers for the miniseries All Her Fault, probably also the novel, and I just want to issue this disclaimer that I did not read the book. I did not read the novel. Actually, like, some people might say, oh, but then, don't talk about the series or whatever. I actually feel like this is exactly why I like to talk about the series. Because some other things where I did, like, what's that one? Six Perfect Strangers, Five Perfect Strangers, The Perfect Stranger, Eight Perfect. I don't remember the number. It's like these people who go to this like wellness retreat type of thing, and this woman is like leading it. Whatever. I know this was also adapted to a limited miniseries with Nicole Kidman and like a few other people, of course. I didn't watch that, Do you know why? Because I read the book and I don't want to watch it. Not because there's some sort of moral high ground or whatever. It's just, I really enjoyed reading it, and I feel like even if I watch it, which I might, I might at some point later, if I'm bored someday and have some time to watch something, maybe I will watch it. But like, you inevitably compare it to the book, right? I feel like you can't really avoid that. And then you can also describe what you thought about it, but it is going to be overshadowed by the novel itself, and not just strictly, okay, this is how this thing functions by itself, as a standalone work. I don't know. And I like talking about especially limited series like that. So that's that. Let's chat about All Her Fault. Now, the main thing. Okay, like in general, it was cool. It was cool. I like these type of, limited cast. There was an event. Usually it's like a murder. Here it was a kidnapping. And then you have different people and their relationships, especially within one family. This is something that I will enjoy no matter how bad it is, really. But here it's also well made, I feel. Yeah, in general, enjoyable watching experience. With that being said, okay, let's move on to the rant part. It's not really a rant. It's just that, yeah, I was not too, let's say, overtaken with the final reveal or, the plot twist or whatever. And I feel like if you have watched my, plot twist magic class, you will also understand why, as I'm going to explain a little bit about this. So you will understand why even better, but we'll get into it today too. The main thing for me was not only was this reveal, so there's this girl, Carrie, or, Josie. Josie was her actual name. So she kidnaps this boy, and then we follow the story of this boy's family, especially with the central character being the mother of this boy, Milo. Right? The mother's name being Marisa. And it's like, you can see, like, if you would ask me at a certain point, like, what would be the most predictable, the most, usual, the most cliche type of an ending of the reveal in the end, it's exactly what happens, right? It's that, oh yes, the boy was actually the woman's, Josie's son, so the kidnapper's son, and yeah, the main bad guy turns out to be Marisa's husband, Peter. So Milo's father, or rather, not even adoptive father, right? Like, because when he was a baby, they had this car accident, and the Peter switched the babies, right, at the accident. Okay, right? Like, I wouldn't, if you asked me in advance what was the reveal, I wouldn't be able to tell you about the accident like that specifically. But of course, you can kind of guess that, yes, probably, it's going to turn out that this was not their real son, but it was actually the kidnapper's son. And she was not crazy as she's kind of portrayed, like, throughout the story before this reveal. The main problem, however, to me, it's not that this is predictable. As you will know, like, I don't think a predictable reveal or a predictable plot twist is a problem at all. The problem is that it doesn't do anything for the story. So what I mean by that is that how we viewed characters before this reveal and how we view them after this reveal basically doesn't really change. Okay, like, the main difference is with Carrie/Josie, so the kidnapper. Okay, because maybe before the reveal you thought, oh, she's a little crazy and she's just obsessed with this kid, and then afterwards you're like, oh no, actually, she was in the right, she was sane, and it was her, like, you completely understand why she did what she did, maybe. And that's kind of the main change that happens. But other than that, the main problem, or like not even problem, just the, thing that makes it go very blah, is the character of Peter, who is, like, since the beginning set up to be the bad guy. I mean, not so obviously in the beginning, but you can kind of see where this story is going. You can see the positioning of the creators, right? Like, oh, Marisa is this, mother who does everything, and he's kind of a bit of a control freak, a bit of a manipulative asshole type of a person who thinks he's doing much more than he's actually doing, who thinks he's better than he actually is, right? That's kind of the vibe that I got in the beginning, and that does not change at all. Like, throughout the story, this is what we stay with, and it just gets, deeper and deeper and, more and more extreme, in a sense. And so from that point of view, it's really like, I don't know, like, personally, and I know this would not be a this would not be a politically popular ending, for example, or a politically popular reveal. Like, I would have loved to see Marisa, who throughout the whole story, presents herself and is presented like, this, martyr, suffering, perfect woman, wife, mother, whatever, like, if it did turn out that it was her fault, if it did turn out that it was actually, she's not as perfect as she thinks she is, and it would have been really cool because, it would be like, oh, it was in the title all along. It really was her fault. Or if it was really, Jenny's fault, so the other woman, the friend, or Leah's fault, who is, the sister. And I get it. The whole point was that, oh, these women are blamed for everything, even though nothing is ever their fault, because, they're just like these poor, innocent, martyrs who do everything, blah, whatever, it's just, it's exhausting, it's suffocating, it's pretentious, and it's hypocritical. I don't know, like, even in the show itself, like, when you see how Marisa responds to her husband trying to help her versus Jenny, so the friend trying to help her, she is behaving very differently. And I'm not saying that a friend and a husband are the same type of person with the same type of a relationship to you, but, there's a very clear difference in this, in her attitude, in her relationship, and you can see that, like, she positions herself as, and is positioned from the, like, show's perspective as the person who is basically just, always doing the best that she can, right? As opposed to her husband, who is not, Yeah, even in the end, when, she kills him, and you could say, oh, see, she's not perfect. No, but, like, clearly we understand why she did it, right? It's all very justified. We hear this reasoning, like, 5 times repeated at the end. Oh, she's stuck. She can't, afford to lose Milo because she loves him, and also it wouldn't be so good for him, blah, 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 all of that, right? Like, even Carrie/Josie tells her like that she understands that she can have Milo. She wants Marisa to have Milo because he believes she's his mom and he now belongs with her. And it's basically like Milo's real, biological mother gives her blessing so that Marisa can basically do anything. I don't know. That's just the vibe that I got. And it's not even so much the main problem for me is that this is really just the perspective that we see throughout. This is the point of view, this is the opinion that we have, right? It's like we start the show with a certain opinion about different people, and then throughout the show we're just like, bathing in our own righteousness about how right we were about, Peter being an asshole, and then being a bad guy even later when he also kills someone, and so on. So yeah, I don't like that. I don't like stories where your, like, baseline beliefs are not challenged. I don't like stories where characters' relationships are very one-sided, as in, like, morally one-sided, right? And also with Jenny's relationship, it's basically the same, It's like, oh, okay, they are in the right and the husbands are just, like, we don't get to see their point of view, and like genuinely, maybe more for Peter, right? I do like this character of Peter as someone who is both with what happened with his brother, where he actually tripped him, and then he was kind of trying to take care of him all his life out of who knows what, guilt or, fear of them finding out, or like keeping Leah, so his sister, in, the role that she was kind of given as the person who was and was not responsible for her brother tripping. I think that was very, very interesting. Like, I'm not against, like, I'm saying this for like the third time right now, but like, I'm really not against the the nature of relationships that they have. It's just that throughout the show, there was no journey in those relationships. That's my main problem, I would say, right? Yeah, if we started with Peter, like, this is what I would prefer, for example, if we started with Peter being genuinely considered as like a great husband by Marisa, by everyone around him, and like by the audience, right? The perspective of the show as well. And then it turned out that he's not as great as we thought. I think that would have been much more interesting. Or, of course, if we see it the way that we see it now, I think anyone could tell you, the most obvious culprit, the most obvious main bad guy here in this show since like the first episode is Peter. And it's just not, doesn't really give me anything other than, like I said, this like righteous satisfaction of being right. And I don't really appreciate that very much, to be honest. Feels very pretentious. Anyway, so yeah, that's about the main reveal, the main plot twist, and that was really the main thing I wanted to talk about. The other thing that I did want to say is that, yeah, I still feel like it was structured very well, and the conveying of information, right, the unfolding of when we learn what was done very well, I feel. So if we now take that, okay, the story is as it is, the characters are the way they are. I do feel like the dosing of when we discover certain things about like the fact that Carrie slash Josie was pregnant, and then we discover that she lost her child, right? Like, we slowly get these little drips of information, until also the final, let's say, reveal of the car accident. I do feel like this accident could have been mentioned a little bit more in the beginning, especially with the main family of Marisa and Peter, but whatever. That's a very minor detail. And I loved the connection with the what's it called? The thing that Milo has with like the synesthesia. I really liked that, and that how that is a connection with Carrie slash Josie. That was really cool. And of course, Detective Alcaraz. This was a character that, again, he is also very much, very clearly morally good character. And even when we can see that he switches that like Tylenol tablets or prescription pills or whatever. But that's to get his son into the better school. And in order to understand that, of course, he had to first say no. And then we see him, engaging with his son, and we see how much he loves his son, and we see how much better the other school would be for him. Like, just so that we really can understand why he did it. Of course, I do love that this was a basis for the detective, like, knowing what Marisa did later when she kills Peter, and also him understanding why she did it, and understanding that this was probably the best scenario for Milo, right? So I feel like this was very well done, so that, Detective Alcaraz has, he's human. He can separate the, let's say, moral from legal, like ethical questions, right? And the distinction between like right and wrong, he can kind of like separate what's legally right and wrong and what might be in life sometimes still the best solution, even though it's not 100% legal. I don't know. I don't know. I feel like because we've seen this whole thing with his son and him doing that, that sets us up for why he also understood why Marisa did. And also, he says like multiple times, I think like at least 2 times, I can remember him specifically saying, well, people, most people are capable of different things. Like most people are capable of almost anything given the right circumstances or stuff like that. So, yeah, I do like that he was human. So anyway, those were my thoughts. All in all, like I said, I did enjoy the show, and I do feel like it was pretty well made, and the acting was really good. But yeah, there are some things about the characters and their relationships that are just, for me, too one dimensional, too one sided, and I would have liked seeing a little more nuance and a little more empathy when it comes to like all characters. That's all. If you watched the show, let me know what you thought. And also, like, I would love to hear if you did read the book. Like, what did you think about the story itself? And then also, if you did watch the show, like, was it similar or were there any differences between them? Please let me know in the comments, and I will see you in the next one.